Hello, my name is Grace Lara, and I am reviewing an article. The article that we chose is Linguistic Moments, Language Teaching and Teacher Education in the United States. This was a very interesting article because it really talked about how we should view students that are learning the second language. It started off by giving us some history. We see that in the 19th century, there was a huge need to help students learn English, but we're not just talking about students that are English language second English language learners. We're talking about students that were coming from Europe that were settling in here to the new United States. There was a big need for these students to learn English the U.S. American way. So that was a bit eye-opening for me because I was able to see, oh, wait a minute, this wasn't just, learning English didn't just start with, the American Indians that needed to learn English, or the Chinese that were coming over that they needed to learn English. This also affected the students that already knew English, but it wasn't the Americanized way. So moving along, now we're still dealing with the same issues. We want students to learn English, but now we're not just talking about European students that already know English. We're not just talking about, do we want students to learn the Americanized English? Now we're talking about, we're getting students from all over the world. In my district, we have a lot of Philippines, Pakistan students from Ukraine that are coming into our classrooms, and we're looking at, oh my God, okay, so it's not just the Hispanic teacher that can help these students. Now we're really having to dig in and see, okay, we're looking at English as a second language, but for all students that are coming from all over the world. So now this need has been amplified. And this article, the beginning of this article showed us what does it mean when we have students that need to learn English. And one of the biggest things that the article suggests is that we need to learn the student's culture. So if we have a student from Pakistan and a student from Guatemala, we need, as teachers, as educators, we need to learn what are their customs, what is their culture, how do they learn, how is their school in their country, how much school did they receive in their country. So before we just look at, okay, we need to learn the ABCs, we need to learn the vowels, we need to learn the sounds, we really need to get to know the student's culture before we even get started. Because if we don't do this, then we're gonna have a hard time trying to reach these students. So we have, let's say we have a classroom and we have that student from Guatemala and we have this student from Pakistan. Both students need to learn. Both students need to learn English. We got to get in their teeth. But the article asks the question, are we as teachers and schools equipped to teach these students? Most likely, and some of these students, some of these teachers, they're not equipped. We are not getting they're not getting that foundation. We're not learning enough on how to teach English as a second language. So this article gives a very good insight in what are we supposed to be doing. So this article shows us that there's too many teachers out there that do not understand the culture. There are too many schools, and there's still a lot of districts that do not understand the students' cultures. And usually they'll see this student, oh, they're ESL, okay, they're second class, it's a second kind of let's put them in the newcomers class, or let's give them some ESL classes, but we need to really dig in more deeper than that. Some of these teachers might even see these kids as inferior, because they're learning a second language they don't understand. This article also states that in order to have a successful learning experience, there needs to be a connection of the students with their home language and culture and community. I thought that was a very powerful statement in this article, where we see a lot of schools, a lot of teachers, that's the first thing that they want to cut out. They want to cut out the students' culture. They want to cut out the students' native language. No more, you can't speak that. I don't understand you. I don't understand if you're talking to your friends, so you're not allowed to speak that. And this article clearly states that is what we're not supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be integrating their culture. We're supposed to be integrating their home language, because that will help build a future learning experience for this student. Another important item that I read in the beginning part of this article is that language is part of a person's identity. Therefore, it is important to understand their culture. That was very interesting, because I saw this as you're absolutely right. It's part of their identity, which leads to the next part, where the article really goes deep into, if we can't see teaching English as it's a skill. It's not a skill. The language that we have is part of us. It's part of our culture. It's part of our being. So this article wants to challenge us to view language as more than just a skill. And what it wants to do is it wants us for teachers to reflect on their own experiences, on their own things that we have gone through, and how did that help us? How did we go from our culture of first language, learning English as a second language, into our school, into how did we do those connections, home and school? That's what this article wants us to reflect as teachers. And it wants us to see that it's not just teaching the ABCs, it's not teaching the sounds, we have to build that foundation of learning about the student's culture before we get to do anything else, before we get to teach, before we get to show them. We need to learn their culture in order for us to be able to build a successful learning community.